Greetings, everyone. It's Lisa Norell. Welcome to episode 44 of the Mindful Marketer Livestream. I am broadcasting today from Virginia in the United States, and I know for sure we have quite a global lineup of people participating. Last time I checked, we had people from South Africa, Dallas, Texas, Saudi Arabia, Mumbai, Brazil, Mexico City, Chicago. We have Andrew checking in. We want you to let us know where you're from by putting your name and your location in the chat. As you know, we welcome live questions, and we are pleased to be able to add this kind of value to people all around the world who want to be more mindful marketers. So before we begin and I introduce Don McGuire, my special guest joining us from Qualcomm, I want to give a special shout out to LinkedIn Learning. They have been promoting my programs now for over a year all across the globe to their 700 million people. And I'm really grateful that all of you see value, and many of you have become what we call affectionately fanboys and fangirls. Hey, Chris in San Diego. So let's talk about today's topic, because marketing leadership is being tested every day in this COVID world. According to the 10-year study by ADP, which is called the ADP Research Institute study, only 14% of the 26,000 people they surveyed are highly engaged at work. The pandemic didn't help matters, that's for sure. And when we say highly engaged, we mean approaching your job with vigor, dedication, and absorption. And right now, as you know, people don't leave companies, they leave their bosses. So what is it that Qualcomm is doing to create more engagement and adapt to some of the new rules of leadership that we're all living with? Our guest today, Don McGuire, is consciously and deliberately guiding higher engagement at Qualcomm by transforming marketing into a caring and engaged growth engine. And this aligns a lot with the mission you all know that I care about, which is helping marketing leaders make that leap from order taker to growth champion. Don McGuire is the Chief Marketing Officer of Qualcomm in San Diego, California. And boy, last week, Qualcomm announced their third quarter earnings. They had strong revenue and revenue diversification to share with investors. And they now have some very effective growth strategies across the automotive, IoT, handset, and other industry segments. And no small feat for sure. And marketing played a key role in that. Now, Don was just promoted to CMO on July 12th. So we are very pleased that he was able to make time for us on a day that Qualcomm is calling a mental health holiday. So he's in the office today doing something very special for us. Don, welcome to the live stream.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's really great to be here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So we know you're in beautiful San Diego, and we certainly hope you'll be able to get outside today shortly after today's live stream, because we pulled you back in.
Yes, absolutely. It's never a dull day in San Diego, for sure.
Right. No, we were talking offline about that earlier. We've got people from all over the world today, Don. Nigeria, Portland, Oregon, Florida, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Arkansas. I just could go on and on, but I'm just thrilled that we have such a global audience, because you certainly represent a global organization. Give us a sense right now just of your origin story. Like, how old were you when you were bitten by the technology innovation bug?
Great question. And I've been seeing people show up in the live stream. So welcome everybody from around the globe. I've been in the technology space pretty much my entire career. And it was really after I graduated from college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, like a lot of people. So what I did what a lot of people do, I got a backpack and I traveled around for about 8 months around the world, just enjoying cultures and meeting new people, and just sort of got on a self sort of realization journey, and had a great time. But at some point I had to come home, and when I ran out of money, and get serious about what I wanted to do from a career path and a life path perspective. So my father actually has been in technology and was in technology his entire career. And I got a little bit of that from him through some nice suggestions on what I might want to do and what I might want to pursue. And I simply read an article about this gentleman named Craig McCaw, who was the founder of a company called McCaw Cellular Communications at the time. And he was on the cover of Forbes magazine. He had a snake around his neck, and he just looked like a super cool dude. And I was like, wow, this guy seems really interesting. Maybe I should consider something in this area. And that's how I got started in technology and in wireless. And then sort of my career path just took me in different ways throughout this journey to where I am today.
That's pretty exciting, although there are no snakes involved, right? No snakes were harmed in your career growth. But I do think you gravitated to chickens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we have 6 chickens. So, and they are producing a lot of eggs, and it's kind of fun to have chickens running around the backyard.
Yes, it is. I'm sure it is. And I know for sure my homeowners association here would not be pleased if we tried that, but I sure wouldn't mind it. So talk to us today, taking a little more of a serious turn. How would you best describe and define for our global audience today, what does marketing leadership mean to you?
Another outstanding question. It's a combination of things. I think being a leader is very different than being a manager. And what I mean, there's a lot of manager titles, right? There's a lot of people who call themselves managers. There's general managers and whatnot. But the word manager, I think, has undersold the role of leadership for a very long time. Managing something implies to me that you're just sort of going through the motions, or you're just sort of getting through something. Leading is actually creating motion and creating inertia, and either pushing or pulling something in a certain direction. And so from a leadership perspective, for me at least, it's really about creating that motion and bringing people along with you, on that journey, whether it's pulling them towards something or pushing them towards something. And so for me, it's been about, how do you bring people along, with you along a journey towards a vision or towards a certain result, and being inclusive, having strong communication, both from a left to right perspective as well as a top to bottom perspective. And part of it has been a little bit of a multi-dimensional task. It's part psychologist, and it's part coach, and it's part cheerleader, right? And it's part constructive feedback giver, and it's really a multi-dimensional role. And it's all about how you really stand people up and help them be successful in their careers and lead, whether it's yourself or a team, in a direction towards a positive result. So that's kind of been my philosophy throughout my career. And, I think it's worked pretty well, but, we're always learning, we're always growing. And if we're not learning, we're stagnating. So it's an exciting time for me, for Qualcomm, and along my leadership journey. Wow, man, I'm taking that next step, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, we're very happy for you. And, you talked about and touched on mental health there. And, we are still feeling the vestiges of grief and frustration about this new Delta variant. It's kind of, that rock in our shoe. So you take mental health and team health very seriously as a leader. Why don't you step us through why that's an important personal hue and cry for you?
Sure. I'll start off with what we've kind of been through here at Qualcomm, and I'll get to the personal piece. But when we first went into the pandemic, it was all about how do we keep employees productive. And I think the focus was on productivity. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. We still had goals to meet. We still had stakeholders to impress. And as you said earlier in the broadcast, Lisa, in the introduction, Qualcomm just produced another record quarter in earnings and business results, and that's fantastic. Business results are important, but along with the productivity angle of what do we do in this pandemic and how do we keep our teams healthy and productive, it's really about engagement. So it's not just about productivity. Everybody can sit at home typing away on a computer and answering email or producing documents or whatever that might be and feel productive, but are they feeling engaged? And so what was really important for me and for the company was to drive engagement as well as productivity. So for my team, which I have a lot of different people from different parts of their career, different age groups, different generations, so to speak. And I was particularly concerned with my younger employees who tend to live alone in small places, whether it's a high rise or whatnot, and can be fairly isolated, especially when we were in extreme lockdown conditions. And so my concern was with their mental health and well-being with regards to feeling isolated. And even though they might be feeling productive, there's this isolation and this lack of engagement that starts to play with you mentally. And so putting things in place that drive engagement, positive engagement, even though you're physically not able to, because when you're in the office together or when you're in an environment with other people, engagement is almost automatic, right? You're making eye contact. You're seeing people in the hallway or in the cafeteria or in the cafe or on campus, and you're engaging. Well, that makes it's a lot harder to do that when you're stuck at home, either by yourself or maybe with yourself and your goldfish or whatever that might be. Engagement starts to fall off fairly quickly. And I was noticing that a lot of my employees, specifically who didn't have families around them or didn't have a social circle that they could isolate with, feeling out of touch. And so we put a lot of things in place. Obviously they had to be virtual, but we put a lot of things in place to drive that engagement. We did mindfulness, virtual mindfulness talks with mindfulness experts. We did stretching with the folks from Stretch Lab. We did wine tastings. We did all sorts of things where we brought people together. We created video content by getting people engaged in their environments and then stitching them all together and then playing them back to the team. A lot of virtual team get-togethers, happy hours, just sort of chats, lunch, kind of lunch and learns, brown bags, all those types of things to drive a level of engagement that really had less to do with business results and productivity and more to do with people feeling connected to their colleagues, right?
I think that's one of our mic drop moments that we're having right now, is really making that distinction between productivity and engagement. And I've been watching a lot of shows about being more productive by going back to the office. I mean, this universal debate hasn't ended.
Yes.
And it's very interesting that not a lot of people are talking about engagement. They're just talking about you're more productive if you're sitting in your desk and I can come over and talk with you at your desk or in the coffee room. So I really admire your distinction there. How did you get a baseline of how engaged people were or were not?
Well, we've continued to do pulse surveys throughout the pandemic at a global company-wide level, as well as at a departmental and team level. And those results have been turned around in real time and shared with leaders so that we could keep kind of a beat on how things were going. And we definitely saw ebbs and flows in morale, in work-life balance, as the lines blurred because your physical environment has become the place for both. So you don't know how to detach yourself anymore. When you were going to an office and then you were going home, that was a physical separation point where you could shift your mindset to, I'm no longer in the office, so I'm no longer in work mode. I'm going home to my house where my pets, my family, my spouse, my partner, my friends are, and I can detach. Those lines were blurring, causing, again, anxiety, as well as just overall, this overall feeling isolated. And so we were really paying attention to that. And as we saw numbers start to kind of dip, then we put what's called Work Well in place as a company-wide initiative, which includes things like our mental health days, which today is one of those. And we've added, 4 to 6 just company mental health days to our calendar outside of, in addition to regular holidays that are on the calendar, for people just to take a pause, don't do email, don't get on email, just enjoy yourself, take care of yourself, go for a hike, work out a lot, go for a swim, go to the beach, whatever that might be, just take care of yourself. And so that's been received overwhelmingly positive, for sure. And people really feel like the company understands, right, what is going on with them, and is proactive about dealing with it and about addressing it. Yeah, sure.
I think that's really helpful, because we have no playbook from a previous time. So you and I are making this up as we go.
Right.
And, we have a question from Rose too that I think is very helpful. Is she's liking the idea of the virtual chats and the cocktail hours, how impact on losing any people due to the remote office time model?
We have not. I mean, I'll say maybe we're extremely lucky, but I have not lost one employee to the remote office environment. In fact, when we identified some folks that were having problems and issues, we worked to address those issues. When it's not funny, I shouldn't laugh, but I have employees who have roommates, and under non-pandemic times, they were always on the go. Everybody's always on the go, so you rarely kind of saw your roommates. All of a sudden, you're now forced to be with your roommates 24/7. And what some people found out is they maybe didn't like their roommates too much, and so they were having a problem and struggling working in an environment with other people that aren't family, or friends, but just roommates. And so they started to, make other accommodations, or tried to make other accommodations. I had an employee who resorted to working out of their car, because their work environment, their home work environment was not conducive.
Oh my goodness.
So when we found that out, I said, no, we have to solve this situation. So we got that person's special dispensation to come into the office. And because we had a tiered system here at Qualcomm, red, yellow, green. Red was on-site mission critical. Yellow was, you could work from anywhere, but you're more productive on site. And then green was, you really could work from anywhere. And so we changed that person's status to red, so they could come into the office, be in their workspace, and be productive, and not have the anxiety of having to be in a work environment that was also their home environment, where they weren't really gelling with the other people that were in that environment. So we just paid really close attention to those things. And as they came up, we addressed them. But like I said, knock on wood, we haven't lost anybody. The team, we were as of July 6th, we entered voluntary return to the office mode. And slowly, but surely we saw people start coming back in higher numbers, and really excited. It was like the first day of school. Right. And people are, I've been seen it so long. And that's been great. And we're seeing morale go up as we've now gone into this more flexible hybrid model of coming to the office, 2 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever it is, and work remotely still in a hybrid model, depending on all the health protocols. I've seen personally in my team a huge lift in overall engagement and morale. The fact that now they have this choice, and now they can get together with their teams in a safe environment and collaborate, and so that's been a really good boost in my specific situation here at Qualcomm. I know I didn't address the personal aspect of this, but yes, mental health is important just outside of the workplace, and so I've got a son who I'm extremely proud of, who just told his story on social media. He started his own company because mental health is really important to him, and anyway, he's a really, really good guy, and it's called What a Wonderful Life, and it's really about celebrating how wonderful life can be, and it's really focused on mental health and bringing awareness to mental health. And he donates the proceeds from his clothing line to mental health charities. He's lost a couple friends to suicide during the pandemic. And he's also had his own mental health issues being a Division I NCAA athlete, and struggled through some injuries and things like that. And so he wanted to go tell his story, and it was pretty brave.
I'm getting a little choked up as you're talking about that, because a young man who transformed his sense of sadness and doom into becoming a clothing designer and inspiring other people, and then talking about it on YouTube and Twitter. I mean, that is so courageous. And I mean,
100%.
He clearly is getting his inspiration from mom and dad. And I'm really happy he's doing well. I'm really happy he's doing well. Yeah. Go Max.
Go Max.
Now we have a couple questions here. Let's look at the questions. And one is that Tim was going to be going to an in-person event, and it looks like that is an interesting, so we're hearing that somebody has COVID, even though they were vaccinated months ago. I wish we had time to get into the medical ramifications of these issues, but, I'm going to leave that to the epidemiologist, right, other than to say that, we're still on this roller coaster, and we don't have, I wish we could answer these questions today on the efficacy of vaccines, but I'm not going to go into an area I don't know much about. But I am fully vaccinated because
Me too.
I owe it to everybody else. Anil, it's so good to see Anil here from San Diego. I think I spoke at one of your technology conferences, Anil, and you asked, you have teams, Don, all over the globe. How does that work for engagement and these innovative mental health timeouts?
Well, we're time zone sensitive, that's for sure. We didn't want to have a wine tasting at 8 a.m., in a different country, for example. But we are time zone sensitive. We've also done multiple sessions of things. So we've done things twice in a day, so that we could capture our global teams, whether it's, time zones that were more conducive to our folks in Asia, or Latin America or Europe. So sometimes we've just, had events, but we've done them in succession, and we've done it 3 or 4 times. And, people like me, I've got to be on it all 3 or 4 times, and that's okay, especially if it's wine tasting. But I had to watch my intake for sure. But we just have to be sensitive to time zone issues, and when people, they have got family time, and they've got families, and they've got other things, and they've got lives. So, we just have to be smart about this. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just being conscious and being sensitive, and just kind of working with and getting feedback, right, and creating that feedback loop. So just making sure that we're as inclusive as possible with our teams around the world, and creating this connection, and sharing a lot of content and stories about how things are going, because this pandemic hasn't been universal, right, in how it's impacted areas around the world. At one time it's better in some places than it is in other places, and then it reverses itself. And so just, kind of hearing those stories, we have obviously a large presence in India, and when India was kind of the birthplace of the Delta variant, really was having all their struggles and issues, everybody at Qualcomm was so concerned about that team, right, and those employees, and just, the Indian population in general. What can we do to help, right? So we all did things at a corporate level, and then we all did things at a team level. And so it was really great. It was really great to see people just really wanting to take care of each other, And that is such a core value of our own private CMO cohorts, which we call the marketing growth leaders. These are people that want to make that leap from marketing fulfillment center to growth champion. Right. And we have, as a result of COVID, we realized from a geographic standpoint that
it wasn't just a great group of people in the Washington, mid-Atlantic states or Atlanta, Georgia. We said, this is a nationwide problem. So now the CMOs who apply to join our group come from all over the United States. And who knows, maybe we'll be in Canada soon. And you'd be shocked at how much they just want to talk about the same issues that you're bringing up today. So I thought it would, the talks and the conversations were all going to be around MarTech stack and reorganizing teams and others, that account-based marketing and other topics. But mental health and team engagement are definitely number one and number two on the list right now. We've got some additional comments coming in, and I want to also give a shout out to Alex in London. It's great to see you here today, Alex. Another great leader and coach within our 100 coaches community with Marshall Goldsmith, Absolutely. A friend and superstar coach. So Absolutely. Let's talk and shift for a minute, Don, to the ramifications of this on your customers, your partners, your OEMs, and the whole value chain that Qualcomm has activated. What do you think has permanently changed in the world of marketing? Something perhaps you may never do again because of the changing way that your audience wants to be treated.
A couple things on that. First, you mentioned that one of the challenges has been how do you continue to be a growth engine, in these circumstances that we've been in for the past almost 2 years now. And it's interesting. We actually embarked upon, as a marketing organization, 2 really significant programs that people would have thought, wow, this is really on one of them, this is really challenging to do during a pandemic situation, and the other program was a direct result of the pandemic. So one of the programs is the Qualcomm Small Business Accelerator program that we launched. It was an idea that my team came up with. We took it to our CEO, and we said, look, our customers are suffering. Small businesses specifically are suffering. These are people that could really benefit from our technology. They're having to transition their business models from primarily bricks and mortar or physical or low technology to an online, digital first, mobile first type of business model. And they're not just set up to do it. But we have all this great technology. We power all these great devices that can really help them. So let's put together a small business accelerator program, and let's ask small businesses around the country to tell us their stories about how they're struggling to convert their models, to think differently, and how we could help them. Right? What kind of technology help they might need, and how we could bring that to the table. And we had a overwhelming amount of companies send in video content or PowerPoint decks or just white papers or Word documents, telling us their story and how they were struggling and what they needed to help them. And then we down selected to 33 businesses around the country, from all over the country, where we delivered. Wow. We delivered in the amount of $25,000 to $50,000 each business in technology and product help with our partners from Best Buy, from the Geek Squad and Best Buy for Business, Verizon, Microsoft, Logitech, and others. We delivered, a lot of devices and technology help to these businesses with devices powered by Snapdragon and powered by Qualcomm technologies that could really help them transform their business models. And these were nonprofits. These were educational companies. One here in San Diego is a music program that was an after-school program that was a physical program where students came to learn how to play guitar and get a music education that's pretty much had been cut, in the schools. And they didn't know what to do when the pandemic hit. So we outfitted them with the digital tools that they needed to continue to teach and help students learn how to play music. So totally fulfilling and lots of great stories from manufacturing to education. And so that was one program that was a direct result of the pandemic situation that we've been in, and how my team together and said, how can we help with our technologies, with our products, how can we help keep these small businesses not only alive and surviving, but also thriving on the other side, right? Because now we've got the tools.
Thank you so.
Right, in the post-pandemic world, we continue to grow and do things differently. So that's one program. And then another program that, you could say, wow, you guys are crazy for trying to do this and stand this up during a pandemic, is one of the things that we've noticed, with our Snapdragon brand is that we have a lot of affinity for Snapdragon around the world. And so we decided we're going to turn that affinity into community. And so building community during this time has been interesting. But we launched our Snapdragon Insiders program in April of this year, and we have over 2 million now insiders around the world, which has just been phenomenal growth. And we knew we had affinity, but we didn't know how people would attach themselves to community. And what we're finding is that the pandemic actually gave us some really interesting ways to engage with our fans. And because everybody was sort of in this mode of learning and connecting online, it really gave us sort of a way to actually launch community in a unique environment that we were in and build on that affinity and bring our fans together to collaborate and to sort of, kind of commingle in an online space, which proved to be super successful. So again, another program. You would say under normal circumstances, you could have done it differently, but we actually decided let's just do it and let's turn affinity into community. And so far so good. The key now is engagement, which we've been talking about through this entire session. How do we keep these people engaged with us and deliver value to them as a fan? So another program we stood up during this pandemic that's been pretty successful.
That's wonderful. Well, I just hope that you don't take your cue from Robin Hood, because I have to tell you, I'm going to upset some people here, which I do every week.
All right.
But that intense gamification that forces people, mostly men apparently, to go into very high risk mode with their investments is not the kind of community building that we need. I think just by having those communities where people can share what's going on or challenges they're facing and they feel safe saying it, talking about it, that in itself could be wildly popular and powerful. Look at our community. Don, when I first met you, I would have 4 people show up for the live stream. So my boyfriend, my neighbor, and 2 of my clients. And so now, we're getting 600-700 people at a time that show up and ask questions. And I could not do this without help from Steph, because all these comments and, requests are coming in here as you and I are talking. I think we've got time for one more question from Anil. So Qualcomm has an automotive business.
Yes.
Is it also tied to the president's push for electronic vehicle infrastructure?
I would say indirectly. So our focus for automotive business is really helping automakers make the transition from sort of the old world of the automobile, which was primarily focused on the mechanical chassis, to the digital chassis, which is really transitioning and transforming the vehicle into, a computer on wheels or a smartphone on wheels, right? There's several levels of connectivity now that's being incorporated and integrated into cars, as well as infotainment and digital cockpits, sensors. There's vehicle to everything infrastructure that is being deployed around the world. We are very involved in that. It's called V2X. Where vehicles understand better the environment that they're in, whether it's the stoplight, the street light, the pedestrian that's about to cross the street, right, or whatever the surrounding environment is, and better drive better safety protocols to make sure that the environment is safe, reducing accidents, things like that. So the vehicle to everything infrastructure we're heavily involved in. The digital chassis is something that Qualcomm is working with almost every automaker around the world on transforming how they build an automobile so that it can actually take advantage of this technology, both electrification, right, connectivity, as well as digital cockpit, infotainment, sensors, et cetera. So we're kind of touching in several different areas of the automotive space. And it's really been interesting to see the automotive business. It's one of the most transformational businesses right now that we've seen. It's, some are calling it the next tech battleground, but it is pretty interesting. And we've got a big play there, and we've seen tremendous growth. We announced it in our earnings. We have a $10 billion backlog with automotive customers in the designs that we've won to deploy our technologies into vehicles of every size, shape, and price range going forward. So excited about the automotive business for sure.
I know it's really nice when you have more demand than you can fulfill, right? But I think you also projected that you will see some relief in the coming quarter in some of those supply chain constraints that are beyond your control. I want to ask you some advice.
Sure.
One of the questions I get a lot from our CMOs is, I'm really good at marketing, but I want to be a growth champion. What's one of the first things a really good marketer can do to elevate into more of a growth champion role within their organizations, whether they're tiny, whether they're a $10 million company or they're a multi-billion-dollar company?
That's a great question. I would say the number one thing you could do as a marketer is, and I'm going to explain this, so bear with me, is be in the business, not on the business. And I think what happens with marketing organizations is they tend to operate outside of the business as a separate functional organization that has maybe some ties or some connected tissue, but sort of is sort of hovering around or outside of the business. My philosophy has always been that in order for marketing to be a growth engine and a driver of business results, you have to be in the business. You have to understand the business. You have to be able to communicate. We're in technology, so we have to be able to speak engineer, understand engineer, right? Communicate with engineers. And marketing and engineering are in some ways, right brain, left brain exercises, but in some ways it's Mars and Venus. So if you're in the business, right? If you're in the business and you've got a true understanding of what those business result drivers are, you can be better marketers. You can also show that you can build credibility with your business stakeholders, and that you can help drive results, and not just be sort of fluffery, right? And so I think being in the business versus on the business is a philosophical shift people can make to be growth drivers, versus just, as you said, I forget what terminology you used, but order takers or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Right. Marketing should not be the place to just go get fun, creative in t-shirts and things like that. Marketing is a business driver and can be a business driver, but you have to be in the business. You have to understand what's going on, and you have to be close to your business stakeholders so that they can see that you understand, that you're a partner, and that you can do things to help, whether it's the bottom line or increase customer efficacy or improve satisfaction or whatever the metric might be. If you're in the business, you stand a better chance of doing that.
Yes, or more design wins.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's one metric you're going to add to your key performance indicators now that you've been in your new job for all of 3 weeks?
Right.
But one KPI that will be new that perhaps supports that new philosophy that we're seeing in the marketplace?
We are going to add a KPI of expanding the funnel. So how can marketing work with our business stakeholders and our sales organization to expand the customer funnel? We've been diversifying as a company now for several years. And again, it reflected in our results that we just announced. So we have the opportunity to expand our funnel and expand our SAM. Marketing can help with that. And so one of the KPIs my team is going to be watching and measuring this year is how well did we help expand the funnel?
Great. Yeah, there's a good challenge for all of you watching today. You may be brand champions, and you also need to step into being demand champions.
Absolutely.
I'm full of all these great pithy words
You
today,
are.
aren't I,
Great.
Don?
That's right. That's good.
It's 2 cups of cappuccino. I'm telling you, I'm in this. I am in this. Well,
Fantastic.
we've reached our bewitching hour. Steph, my producer, has put your LinkedIn profile in the chat and on the banner so people can follow you and watch your adventures, not only in marketing innovation, but in Qualcomm's endless innovation as a 5G pioneer. So we just want to thank you so much, Don, for being with us today. And I want to send you away so you can go have your mental health day.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully everybody listening and watching today got a little something out of it. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
All right. We'll see you soon, Don. Well, this brings us to the close of our episode 44, and you've all stuck around. I mean, the questions were great. Keep putting your questions in the chat because I always go back and revisit the chat and make sure that your questions are answered. So remember too that we are doing this the first and third Fridays of every month on LinkedIn Live and YouTube and Facebook. So make sure that you have signed up to receive our events calendar, which is here in the banner. We want to stay in touch and make sure we bring this value to you going forward. So join us for episode number 45 coming up on August 20th. I get to sit down with a friend of mine. I've been friends with Dory Clark for at least 12 years, and she is a fellow 100 Coaches member, a prolific author and entrepreneur, a Broadway producer, and a bon vivant. So Dory is going to talk with us now about how do you balance living your life with the long game in mind and balance that with short-term thinking, which can often be a challenge in Western business society. But how can you make sure you keep that healthy balance of the long game and the short game? So join us August 20th. Follow me on LinkedIn and you won't miss a trick. And we will look forward to seeing you August 20th. Have a great weekend.